Let's create a scene where things just burn away. This is my current image, and you can have a logo here or some other piece of art. I'm working with this image because I want to fill in the continents with this type of paper and everything else in the background, the ocean, with this type of paper. To start out, let me just create a new composition, new composition. I'm calling this my scene and clicking on OK. I'm going to drag my map into the scene. Next, below that, I'm going to drag this paper look, and I want to use a Lumimat to get to these continents. And if I try that right now, that doesn't work out. Let me scale my image. Still, it's an interesting look, but it's not what I'm going for because the value of the continents isn't strong enough to knock out a pure Lumimat. And I would want a Lumimat reverse actually. I guess that's close, but you can see that the image is too faded within the continents. Why is that? Let me set that back to none because it's not a pure black and white image. Colors of the continents are being evaluated as grayscale. Let me start to fix this. I'm applying a tint only just so I can see the grayscale value. Next, I'm going to apply a curve. And I'm going to drag this curve off to this side until everything fills in as black. Now I have this black and white image. To reset the curve, I could just drag this dot all the way off, or you could click the reset button. So dragging the curve this way creates higher contrast, this way less contrast. Now that I have my high contrast, I could throw out my tint. Or can I? As I zoom in, you can see that there's some color pixels around here. And I just want to deal with everything as grayscale. So leaving tint on gets rid of any anti-aliasing throwing off an image. Selecting the paper layer, going to Track Matte, and selecting Luma Inverted Matte. And that gives me what I'm looking for. Cardboard-like continents. For the background, that's easy now, since I knocked out everything using a Lumimat inverse. I'll just drag this paper background behind everything, and I'll scale it up. And now I have my new piece of art. Make sure everything reaches the edges. I could either rename this my art or logo, or I can pre-comp all this together. Here's my scene, and I'll drag it out from that folder. And this is the current scene that I'm working in. I'm going to select all these layers and pre-comp them, pre-compose. I'm calling this new pre-composition background art. I'm moving all the attributes on the inside and clicking OK. Go to my map layer and holding down the shift and up arrow, just nudge it up a little bit. To create burning, we're going to use a built-in plugin to start with the disintegration of the page. And then we'll be using Fractal to create some fire. We'll apply the disintegration to this image, which is now a composition. And we'll also apply the same disintegration offset in time to the fire layer. Create a new solid. And I'm just going to call this solid the burn solid. Look for CC burn. Here's CC burn film. This effect will burn away an image. You might have seen this effect on many videos or films. This is how you do it. It simulates a film burning away. It can be used as a reveal. Let's look at this burn. The burn center can be adjusted by clicking on this icon and relocating the center of the burn. If you want something to burn away from a corner, click there. And now you can see how this part burns away first, followed by everything else. If you want your burn to be in the center, just hit the reset. and now it's in the center again. I'm going to go with a center burn. Random seed, this is used to pick a random pattern for burning. This first number is what we're interested in, the percent of burn, starting from 0, ending up at 100%. I'm going to animate this burn for the solid layer, starting at frame 0, clicking on the stopwatch, going to 8 seconds later, typing in 8 here. If you want to switch between hour, minutes, and seconds, you can hold down the control key and click here, and that will toggle between frames and hour, minutes, seconds for the values. So at frame 240, my burn will be 100%. And this is the animation so far. Feels a little slow. I'm pressing the U key to expose this key, and I think by 3 seconds, let's make it 4 seconds, which is 120 frames later, the burn is done. So that's part 1. Next part is to use this burn to disintegrate this image. Selecting this background art layer, going to mode up here, and this burn, if I turn off the background art, it's alpha, it's also luminosity at the same time. This means we have choices when applying this track matte. I'm going to do alpha matte burn. Let me turn off previewing alpha in the background, and this is what we have so far. Our image is disintegrating away. Now let's take a look at these edges. It's kind of smooth. And to roughen it up, which would be a lot more like burning paper, I'm going to apply a roughen edge to this, applying it to the top layer of burned solid. And you could play with the adjustments, such as edge sharpness. And we could layer things of edge sharpness with a more smooth version of it. Let me just type in 3 for the sharpness. Now that disintegration is accomplished, we need to add flames to all this. Create a new solid layer. I could reuse the old solid. I'm going to call this my flame solid. Clicking on OK. To this, I'll apply a fractal noise. I'll increase the contrast a little bit, and I'm going to use tint. For my tint colors, I could pick reds or orange and yellow. Do a little more like this. Maybe the other color has a little more yellow in it. And I'll pick the orange one and drag it a little back to red. Next step is to animate the evolution of the fractal. Option click here. And for the evolution, I'll do time multiplied by 200. Let's see how that looks. As a note, option clicking on evolution opens up a place to type in an After Effects script. The passage of time multiplied by a number to fold this up. I'm going to copy this burn solid layer, and that burn solid layer, all it does is disintegrates a solid. So I'm copying this. Right now it's being used as a way to disintegrate the background. I'm going to do the same thing again, copying it, placing it on top of the stack here, going to my flame solid layer, and selecting alpha matte burn solid, the top one. So now we have both of these going at the same time, but because both are going at the same time, we can't see our background image being burnt away. Just drag these two all the way to the bottom. So behind the background art is the flame. The reason we're not seeing the flame is because the timing of this burn solid layer matches the timing of this page being disintegrated. You need to offset in time a little bit one of them in order to see the flame, because we want the flame to be delayed just a little bit, and the flame is controlled by this burned solid. All right, if I go to my burned solid layer for the flames and I drag it a little bit to the right to delay it, now you can see the burning edges. Let me experiment with turning off roughen edge. If you want a softer look, I keep roughen edges on. It will match the current edges. Experiment with increasing or decreasing the edge sharpness. Maybe I want to pull it back just a little bit. This will reveal a background. I'm going to pre-comp the burning of the solid with the flame because I want to apply an effect. And to apply effect to this group, I need to pre-compose it. And I'll call this pre-composition my burning flame. On the burning flame, I'm going to apply a turbulent displace. And with evolution, you can play with it. It'll just distort things slightly. Could also play with complexity of the displace. And you also could play with the amount. I just want a small amount, something like 2. And as this small value goes forward, it will just add some movement to the flames. So the burning away doesn't look so mechanical. Maybe I'll go up to 5. I'll animate the evolution. Option click. Time multiplied by 200. And turbulent displace just adds a little more motion to the flames. You could play with the amount of displacement. At higher numbers, it might look too intense. But you have some interesting action going on here, this swirly action. So somewhere between 5 and 100, maybe going down to 20, might create some interesting distortions with turbulent displace applied to our flaming effect.